The night was calm in the streets of Lagos, a rare calmness in this noisy city, and still in motion. In a modest apartment, a dim light shone on Sammy's face, which gently caressed his rounded belly. Each movement of his child to be born reminded him of the long fight that he and Domi had led to get there. Years of suffering, of broken hopes, of false layers, and yet, today, she finally touched her dream of maternity. Domi sat next to her, gently holding her hand. Her look, usually so serious, was that evening filled with an emotion that she didn't have to hide. After all we've been through, we're finally going to meet our baby. Sammy smiles, his eyes shining. Yes, but I'm scared, Domi. Afraid of being alone that day. I need you to be there. Domi slightly brushed his eyebrows. His work devoured him lately, but he knew that this promise was more important than anything. I will be there. I promise you. He put a hand on his belly. 100 years of small life, moving under his palm. They were ready. But even before this precious moment can be imprinted in their memory, the phone rang. Domi hung up, and his expression changed instantly. A call from his boss. An emergency. He exchanged a look with Sammy, feeling the tension between them. I'm sorry. I have to go. She says nothing, but her heart was tight. She understood. She always understood. Domi left the apartment in a hurry, leaving behind a pregnant woman and alone, in a night when something strange and inexplicable was about to happen. Lagos, a tentacular and boiling city, had become Domi and Sammy's new home for a few months. After an unexpected promotion, Domi had seized this opportunity to offer his family a stable future. But beyond the material comfort, his first concern was Sammy, and this long-awaited pregnancy, this miracle they had so long awaited. This is how they chose the Hospital of Lagos Central, a facility known for its modern infrastructure and its access to subsidized care. A choice that, on paper, seemed to be the best to ensure childbirth without a grave. But very quickly, Sammy discovered another side of this hospital. Behind these impeccable walls and his last calling equipment, a darker reputation was the hard look to a woman twisted by the pain of contractions. When you can't stand the pain, you don't get pregnant. Ricana another, leaving the patient humiliated, unable to answer. The cries of pregnant women, instead of being welcomed with compassion, were reprimanded like caprices. A growing discomfort took over Sammy at each new visit. She felt an oppressive atmosphere and invisible tension that weighed on the patients. But amidst this clinical chaos, only one person contrasted with this coldness. Miss Sarah. Miss Sarah was not like the others. With a rare softness, she distinguished herself by her humanity, her benevolence, and this warm smile, which immediately appeased the one who crossed her path. While the other nurses were and sent patients like numbers on a list, Emily Sarah took the time to listen. She asked how she felt. She put a reassuring hand on their trembling shoulders. She spoke to them gently, explaining each step to them, dissipating their fear. In this hospital where fear reigned, it was a light. She murmured among them, asking Miss Sarah, "She is different. If you want a birth in dignity, it is her you must see." Some women traveled miles, leaving their village to be followed by her and no one else. Her reputation grew until she made a shadow to other wise women who saw with a bad eye the love her patients were bringing. But it didn't matter. Mademoiselle Sarah continued to exercise with the same dedication, because for her, every life was precious. Mademoiselle Sarah, as always, showed this reassuring smile that made her the exception in this hospital, where coldness and indifference reigned. She put a soft hand on Sammy's, her eyes impregnated with an infinite benevolence. "You have perfectly followed all your visits, Sammy. Everything indicates that your delivery is close. Don't worry, go home and relax. We'll see you again in a week for your delivery." Mrs. Sarah's words were like a bauble on Sammy's mind. She was ready. She left the hospital with a new lightness, feeling her heart filled with silent joy. This pregnancy, After so many trials, finally reached its end. The afternoon was soft when she came home. Everything in the house seemed to welcome her with tenderness. She instinctively went to the baby's room, this sanctuary of love that she had meticulously prepared. The stuffed animals lined up on a shelf seemed to watch over the room. A delicate mobile slowly turned under the effect of a light current, projecting dancing shadows on the pastel walls. Every day, Sammy would make his prenatal suitcase, caressing the little clothes carefully folded from the tips of his fingers. It was his ritual, his way of welcoming his baby with all the love in the world. On the other side of the corridor, Domi would watch him in silence. He would see her smile, put a hand on her belly, whisper sweet words to their daughter to be born. A huge sense of pride invaded them. They were going to become parents. This moment, so long awaited, marked the beginning of a new era for their family. But when fate seemed to finally smile on them, a shadow came to disturb this harmony. That night, as they were enjoying the peace of their home, the phone rang. Domi hung up, his expression instantly changed. His work called him to a remote place, a critical problem that needed his immediate presence. Sammy felt her heart tight. She knew how important this mission was. This job was the key to their future, to the safety of their child. But a growing anxiety subsided in her. And if the baby arrived last night, Domi saw the anxiety veiled in his gaze. He took his face between his hands, blowing his forehead a kiss. I promise you that everything will be fine. It's just a matter of time. As soon as it's settled, I'll come back. But they both knew that this promise had no guarantee. He slowly moved away, fighting against the weight of regret. Sammy, standing on the threshold of their house, looked at him from afar with tears in her eyes. In the silence of the night, as Domi's car disappeared into darkness, she was left alone with her thoughts, alone with the unknown that awaited her. The rain fell on the left with a chain of intensity, flooding the streets and transforming the city into a chaos of flak and trembling reflections under the lights. In the darkness of her apartment, Sammy was suddenly struck by a throbbing pain. A scream escaped her. Her breath stopped. She tried to get up, but a new wave of pain folded her in half. Then, a shiver of anguish ran through her skin. A hot liquid slipped along her legs. The water pocket had just broken. It was time. Sammy rushed to her phone. Trembling hands, she frantically composed Domi's number. A tonality, then another. Her heart was beating at full speed. Come on, Domi, come on, come on. But the cold voice of the messenger broke her hope. The number you are trying to reach is not available at the moment. No, not now. The panic rose in her, interwoven with the pain. She was alone. She was deeply inspired. She put a trembling hand on her belly and whispered, "My love, we're going to make it. I'll take you to safety." She grabbed the prenatal suitcase, each movement amplifying the tearing intensity of the contractions. She opened the door to a feeble gesture and jumped under the rain, each step resonating like a challenge thrown at fate. The streets of Lagos seemed deserted. Under the violent rain, the water was boiling in torrent, slapping her legs as she raised a trembling hand to stop a taxi. A vehicle moved in a noise of tires slipping on the wet tarmac. "At the hospital, from the central gate, quickly," said the man, out of breath. The driver, a man of age, with a closed face, shook his head and pressed on the accelerator. The journey was a mixture of anguish and pain. The lightnings tore the sky, illuminating the anonymous silhouettes running in the rain. Sammy grabbed the seat in front of her, biting her lower lip so as not to scream. She closed her eyes, trying to focus on the only thing that mattered, keeping her baby safe. The entrance to the hospital Lagos Central was as impersonal as usual. The neon lights were flashing a raw light on the white walls, and the staff, apparently exhausted, went and came with a well-built mechanic. They put him on a wheelchair, but no one gave him a word of comfort. His eyes, full of hope, instinctively searched for Miss Sarah, but she wasn't there. Why? A firm hand pushed her to the bedroom before she went to bed. The nightmare began when she was placed on a bed of examinations, a dry, stony path. Lie down there, I'll give you a massage. Sammy obeyed both good and evil, fighting against the pain that tore her stomach. The nurse, a woman with a hard look, showed no signs of compassion. When the pain became unbearable, Sammy let out an involuntary scream. She had only one look and a stinging remark. Close it. No one sent you here. You think you're the only one to be in bed? Words hit harder than the pain itself. Sammy felt a tear roll on his cheek. His body was shaking under the contractions, but it was mostly his heart that was breaking. The nurse looked indifferently at the monitoring screen. You are not yet fully dilated. You have several hours, then stop shaking and waiting. Then, without a word more, she turned her heels and joined her colleagues in a corner of the hospital. Sammy, devastated, heard in the distance the shuddering laughter behind her. She laughed, as if her pain had no importance, as if she was just a burden among so many others. Sammy crouched slightly on the side. Each contraction was moving her away from the real world. Her eyelids became heavy, her mind swaying between exhaustion and pain. She murmured a single name, MLLE Sarah. Where was she? Why wasn't she there to reassure her, as she had always done? A shiver went up along her spine. She felt as if something was wrong, as if an invisible wall was separating her from the only person who could have saved her from this hell. She put a trembling hand on her belly, seeking comfort in the only heat that remained. It was then that she felt a strange pressure, an unknown weight. Her breath stopped. The baby arrived. Sammy felt her mind sink, the pain becoming a black sea in which she drowned. No one would come to help her. She was alone. She knew it. But suddenly, in the middle of this void, steps, light, regular steps, gently resonating on the cold floor of the bedroom. The door slowly opened, and there, like an apparition, Miss Sarah was there. Her silhouette was detached from the frame, bathed in the light of the corridor. Her eyes, filled with compassion, contrasted violently with the cruel indifference of the staff. Sammy felt a wave of relief cross her, as if the simple presence of this woman erased all the suffering she had endured. Don't worry, Sammy, I'm here now. Her voice, soft and firm at the same time,